The first email automation we're going to go through is how to send an email notification to a particular user, or maybe it's not a user, it's your customer. Because we're using a project management base, our trigger for this automation is going to be whenever an assignee is attached to a task. And then our action is going to be sending out an email notifying the assignee that they've been attached or they've been assigned a new task. So really, we're notifying the team instead of having to email that person or call that person or send them a Slack message. Every single time they get assigned a task, they're going to be notified via email. In order to set this automation, let's go take a look at our data first. In our data, we need to be looking at the task table because that's where the assignee gets attached to a particular task. I'm going to create a new view. Very often when I'm building a new automation, I don't necessarily want to look at every single field, so I'm only going to show the ones that are relevant to the automation I'm working on. After I create the view, I'll hide all of the fields. I can see that a lot of my tasks are missing an assignee right now, but that's all right. We can assign myself to some of them. I also want to make sure that in our assignees table, we have every assignee captured, as well as their email contact information where we're going to be emailing them at. So now I've added myself in as an assignee, and I've also added my email to that assignee record. Next, I'm going to attach the assignee to a particular task. At the moment, I can see that not all of my assignees have a particular email. So in this case, if, for example, you're sending it to external users, and some of them you might have their email, other ones you don't, you might want to build a lookup field to look up the email to make sure you've got all of the data. So in my tasks table, I'll create an assignee email column. And voila, I can now see my email because I'm the assignee. Next, I also want to make this internal team table a little bit more resemblant of a real life scenario. Very often you're going to be sending email notifications to clients or email notifications to partners. So you're going to probably have a little bit more information than what I've got in this assignee or internal team table right now. Most likely, the situation that you'll be in is that there's already a name column or a first and last name column. And this is a good time to introduce this concept of splitting up your data. When you're building your database, something that we always encourage our clients to do is making sure you capture first name and last name separately at all times. And the email automations provide a perfect example. When you email someone, you are never going to say, "Hello, John Smith," or "Hi, John Smith." You're almost always going to say, "Hi, John," "Hi, Sarah," "Hi, Adam," instead of their full name. And because Airtable emails can include custom fields, or mail merge, as others might call it, it's very important to keep information in their separate fields so that you can say, "Hi, Nicole," instead of saying, "Hi, Nicole Smith." All that to say, I'm going to create a first name and last name column in my internal team members table. After I've created a first and last name field, I'm going to join them together into full name. And you will recall us creating that formula from before. After we've created a full name column, now we can go back to our tasks table and take a look at our assignees. They'll have their full names, and the assignee emails have also not changed. One other trick I wanted to show you when you're testing emails is the plus modifier to your email. If your organization is using a Gmail or G Suite and your email is in Gmail, that's awesome because then you can use this shortcut. Very often when you test with your emails, you're going to get inundated in both your work email and your personal email because you might need a few different emails to test. However, what you can also do is, for any Gmail users, you can add a plus test into the email. So for mine, what I'll usually do is I'll say Cherry plus Lucy at. So what I'll usually do is I'll have a few different test records, but modify my email such that I know which test record that email is associated with. I'm also going to add a plus modifier email to Adam's email. By setting up these test emails, all of these emails will actually still go to me, but the address column will appear different, so it's much easier for me to tell if my email automation is actually working properly. Now back on the task table, you can see our lookup field for the assignee email is much more populated with our other test emails that we just created. So now let's start building our automation. There are lots of different types of triggers. You can have different triggers, like when a record matches a condition, which is what we'll use, because our condition over here is going to be whenever the assignee for a task is not blank, then we want to send out that email. You can also set your trigger to be when a form is submitted. That means an Airtable is submitted. This works very similarly to when a new record is created. Generally speaking, if you do get people to fill out a form, I would recommend using the when a form is submitted trigger. However, if there's no form, you can certainly set the automation trigger to when a record is created. You do want to be careful with the record creation trigger, because sometimes you are going to create that record and the record is entirely blank because you have not filled in any information yet. That might be a situation where you're going to cause your automation to fire prematurely, which is not what you want, because we don't necessarily want to inundate people with too many automations. You can also set up an automation trigger when a record is updated. This is a good option, especially if you need to update your staff or update a customer whenever a status is changed or when a field has been modified. And you want to be careful about this one, because you don't necessarily want to watch every single field, because again, that could cause way too many automations to trigger, but you just want to watch one or two or very few fields that are actually relevant and need to trigger an email or trigger some kind of action. The next type of trigger is at a scheduled time. This has been really helpful, and lots of our clients benefit from a weekly digest or a monthly update or some kind of daily report of how many new projects were added, how many new tasks were completed, how many things are outstanding or overdue. So this is, again, very helpful. Instead of sending an email every time a task is assigned, you could also send an email to say, here were all of your tasks that were assigned to you within the last 24 hours. And you can schedule that on a specific interval. Finally, you can also trigger automations when a record enters a specific view. This usually means that you're setting up a view and filtering it in such a way so when a record comes in and meets those filters, then you're automating some next piece of the workflow. So for now, let's make this automation based on a record matching a condition. We're going to select our tasks table. And the condition is going to be the assignee is not empty. Now here you could also add a second condition. Because we're going to be sending an email in a moment, we don't actually want to send any emails unless that assignee has an email on record. So most likely, the assignee is not empty is going to be a good enough trigger. But if you want to be extra cautious and you want to be extra strict about when your automation runs, it's good to be precise, and we're actually going to add in another condition to make sure that the assignee email is also not blank. Great, and now you can choose your record. I'll choose task 10. And you always want to make sure you're choosing a record in this trigger step, because that's what email or what record or what assignee you're going to be testing with. You can click this drop down here to look at the field values. You can see that my email shows up in this list of fields. Next, we're going to add an action. And the action is going to be send email. In our send email step, we're going to be filling out some information. I'm going to make my right side a little bit wider so we can see the screen that we're working in. You can enter a description. The description is always helpful and it will show up on the left-hand side. And you can fill in the to email. The to email is going to be the assignee email. The subject line, this is up to you depending on what kind of email automation you're trying to create. I'm going to type in a subject line called "A new task has been assigned to you." In the subject line, we can also include custom information. To include custom information, you're going to click that plus button again. And you can choose your data. I'll start typing in the task name. So now I've got a little bubble here that's called task name. And this means when I receive this email, I'm going to see a task has been assigned to me plus what name that task is called. Earlier, we talked about why we want to use two fields to capture the first and last name. Here, we're just going to merge in or bring in the first name into our email. I lied, we actually need to go create a lookup field for the first name. For now, I'm just going to merge in the name field. Here's my assignee name. Next, I'm going to include some information about the task itself. When you're using Airtable's default email automation, you can insert lists and grids. So it's very easy for you to actually put in information from your record. I'm going to click the list. And in the list, I'm going to attach a few columns that I think would be helpful to my assignee. After you're happy with your email that you've set up, you can click on Generate a Preview. In the email preview, Airtable is going to show you what information is included in your email. So we have the recipient, which is the assignee, and the task name, and the subject line of the email, which includes the task name that we added in. The email itself will also include the list of fields that we included on the particular record. And once you're happy with the preview, you can toggle over to Run as configured and then run a test. Next, Airtable is going to show that you have emailed a record. And this is what the email looks like. It looks quite similar to the preview. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, you do see the Airtable logo, which is fine for internal notifications, but not so great if you're sending it to an actual customer. So next, we're actually going to set this email automation up using the Gmail integration. Thanks for investing in your own knowledge base. I'm Cherry Yang, the founder of Claribase. We're going to be releasing our flagship course, Airtable Mastery, for free. In the course, you can find over 100 videos on topics like design, integration, automations, and interfaces. It's perfect for the Airtable champion who wants to build their database right the first time. You can sign up for the course at the link down below.